Okay, welcome to this week's Weekend Waffle, and what I'm going to try doing from now on is do these a little bit more regularly, because I've looked back over my channel history and it's often been a month or 2 months between these, and I think the reason that this has happened is because I tend to do them based on a topic which is nothing to do with what's happened in the week, which means I tend to be a bit lazy about putting them together. So I thought if I spend a little bit of time at the beginning talking about what's happened in the week, what I've been playing, and then go on to the video, it should give me a bit more of a spur to actually do these regularly at the weekend, because being weekend waffles, they're never uploaded at the weekend, so this might help a little bit. So what I'll talk about first before I get onto the shmups, because you'll know that it's about shmups from the title, so it's like Hitchhiker's Guide. You know, instead of creating tension and whatever, tell people at the beginning. So that's what I'm doing. So this week I've been playing Castle of Illusion, the Mickey Mouse game, and it's a game that I've never finished. I played it lots of times years ago, but I never finished the game, and I looked at it on the shelf and I thought, this has really been bugging me. I really need to finish this game, so I didn't. It took me about an hour, and it's a really good example of a game that's, you can pick up and play, and if you've got an hour to spend, you can just put the game on and play it all the way through, and it's challenging, particularly later on, but once you've played it a few times, it's really good just, to play all the way through. And with games, it's been quite a while since I've been doing any work on the sprite engine. I put up a video a few weeks ago and I've improved it a bit since then, but over the last 2 weeks I've been distracted, and I find that developing software, writing games and things, it takes a lot of effort, and you've really mentally got to be in the zone to do it, and anything that distracts me means that it takes second place. So the thing that's been distracting me is this, for better or worse, which is Ni no Kuni on the PlayStation 3. I'm not sure if that'll focus because there's no viewfinder on this camera. And the game's a JRPG, and I do like my RPGs. I suppose I don't really talk about them much or do gameplays, because I find doing a gameplay, the first 10 minutes of an RPG doesn't really do it justice. And this one's brilliant because it's by Studio Ghibli, and I first saw this at Replay last year and they were demoing it and it looked just like the cartoon. I thought, this looks too good to be true, and I got, started playing it, and it literally looks like a Studio Ghibli film. So they're the anime team that did Spirited Away and Laputa, Castle in the Sky and My Neighbor Totoro. So they've been doing these for quite a while, and the graphics on the game look just like an anime. And if you take the character, so it's like third person behind the character, and if you just let go of the control pad, then the game just looks like an anime. It's brilliant, and it's just nice to be able to see and play a game that feels like a Studio Ghibli animation. And the good thing with this, with JRPGs, I'm terrible for starting them and not finishing them, because I think after about 2 hours, if the story's not gripping me, I'll just put it down. It doesn't really... I think it's all about story. I wouldn't say I don't like JRPGs, I don't like certain parts of the mechanics, so if the story's not drawing me in, I just get tired of it. But with this, it seems to be really good, so I've been enjoying it. So video-wise, and I suppose this connects to the sprite scaling graphics demo that I've been working on. I've been trying to play as many sprite scaling games as I can, just to get a feel for them and just to get some inspiration. And the last 2 that I've done are really the last 2 that I can think of. I suppose 3 if you count the World Rally Fever on DOS, which has been quite good because I got back into DOSBox. Wow, I'm rambling. But it's nice just to get those out of the way so I can move on to what I'm going to talk about this week. But before I get onto that, I suppose the last 2 things are, one is the YouTuber of the month that I saw last night. So this was the video it was uploaded by and put together by Electronic Adventures, but the YouTuber of the month this month is Lone Boys Post, so he did the introduction, and I was really pleased to see that the first nominee was myself, and I'm really just honoured to be mentioned in that. I've been doing this for about a year, probably within a week or so. I think it was mid-July that I started last year, and during that time, just the number of people that I've met and you know, all the great conversations and just being part of this community is just brilliant. And to be recognised in that way, you know, it means a lot. You know, whether I win it or not is, you know, is one thing, but just to have the nomination, it really, you know, means a lot. And it would be, you know, great if I can keep doing this. I've certainly enjoyed it, and that's what it's all about. So the last thing was this, well, yesterday, and it's, you know, it's too hot, so it's nice to, you know, go places rather than just being sat inside it with it being too hot. So I don't cope with heat. I just end up getting headaches and sleep, and it's not good. So I thought I'll go out. So Dave and I went to Manchester, to the Manchester Science Museum, and the thing they've got there is the Manchester Baby, and it's the first programmable computer, and I think this was made in 1954, if I remember correctly. Was it? No, 58, because it was the anniversary. Yeah, 1958. And this was, it's almost like a pilgrimage to see the first computer, you know, retro computer, and this thing's huge, and it takes up, you know, half a room. And just to see it, and the way that you program the software in by pressing buttons, you know, you've got these switches and knobs on the front, and you program it in using like binary, and it's brilliant just to see how far things have come. And I've got a little bit of footage of that and a couple of photos that I took on my phone, so I'll upload those to the end of the video. Right, now I've got that out of the way, which has probably been 10 minutes of waffle, but you know what to expect. So what I'll get on to this week is the topic, which is shmups. And shmups are a genre of games that I've really enjoyed over the years, and I've picked them up here and there, and I haven't done many on the channel, and I think I've had in the back of my mind that I want to do like a shmup special. And I thought about doing that and, you know, spending half an hour doing a special, and I thought, no, I don't want to do that because the video will be too long. So what I thought I'd do is start with this weekend waffle, just introducing the idea, and then spend the next 2 weeks doing gameplays but only on shmups. And I've really enjoyed shmups going back to the BBC. I used to play Galaxian, and I was going to say Gallagher, it wasn't, it was a clone called Zalaga, which is, you know, similar to Space Invaders in a way. And there was another one which was more like your top-down scrolling shoot 'em up, but the enemies scroll down as well, and I can't remember the name of it, and I've really got to find it out at some point, so I'd like to go back and look at that. But what I thought I'd do for the moment is to just look at 8-bit and 16-bit shmups. So I'm not going to do 32-bit or Dreamcast or PS2, and I'm not going to do the computers, which would be the Amiga and the BBC and the ST, because there would just be too many videos. And I thought, I've got this collection here, and I'll just stick to this, and then, you know, see how it goes for 2 weeks, and just see how people take to these. Because I found that when I did the Toge series of games a few months ago, probably January, people took to them really well. So I thought, okay, doing a series, I thought it might bore people, but I think with shmups, it's one of those genres that I think a lot of people are into. And I think the reason that I'm attracted to shmups is it was one of those genres that when I suppose going back to when I first got the Mega Drive in the early 90s, if you read Mean Machines, or even, I suppose, people I knew, there were two genres which, you know, the older kids enjoyed. So I would have been like 10 years old, and it was the older teenagers that really were the types who would import games and would play certain more mature games, and shmups was one of them. The other one was 2D beat-em-ups. So I think as a kid I would enjoy a certain type of game, but I'd always look up to an older generation, and, you know, these were the sorts that were playing these games and importing, and you know, the ones that had Japanese Mega Drives. And I think it's nice just to put my, you know, go back to thinking how I felt at that time about these games, because they always felt very special, and I think now, I understand now why, if you look on eBay, some of these games are quite hard to get. They're not all expensive, some of them are, like games like Radiant Silvergun, but a lot of these are quite highly sought after, and it makes sense now to think that a lot of these games were imports originally and they were quite sought after, but they eventually came out in the UK in the PAL territory, so we all got to play them. So what I'll do, I'll start with the Master System, and I've got a few piles of games here, and I'll just go through. I'll try and keep them in the same order that I'm showing them here, and just to give an introduction of where I'm going to go in the next couple of weeks. So the first one, I'll start with the Master System. I've got 2 games on this for Shmups. So the first one is Sagaya, which is Darius 2. I'm not sure why they changed the name. And this is quite a good version, given that it's an 8-bit, Master System game. It's a bit flickery. Graphically it's pretty good and the gameplay's good, but the flicker's not... I've seen worse on the Master System, but it taints it slightly. I think this is always a problem with the Master System. There's always something wrong with the games. So the next one is Xenon 2 Mega Blast, which is a really good conversion of the Amiga game. And graphically it looks like a 16-bit game, but the problem is it has a lot of slowdown in it, and the game is quite slow anyway, but on the Master System at the beginning it really chugs when you've got a lot of sprites on the screen. So it's not one of my favourites, but it's enjoyable to play, particularly as it's on a Master System, because I think if you put your mind into playing a certain machine, say I'm going to play some Master System games, you kind of get conditioned to them and you can appreciate them a lot more. So, oh yeah, this is tiny mug, which is Mario. I got this from an Easter egg, so it's a little cup of coffee, and it's tiny. So if you compare it to, I don't know, a CD, tiny bit. Probably stops my caffeine intake, but there you go. So the next ones I'll look at are the PC Engine games. So the first one here is Final Soldier, which is, and I was going to say I could show you what the screenshots are like, but the PC Engine games don't have a back on them. And this game is part of the Super Soldier rather series, and it overlaps with either I'm thinking Gunlord, it's not Gunhead, which is Blazing Lasers, which is a really good shmup on the PC Engine and the TurboGrafx. And this was one that I picked up a couple of weeks ago, and I was after Gunhead for the Japanese PC Engine, but it's really expensive. It's like 50-60 quid, whereas the European or American Blazing Lasers is really cheap. But it's a tenner, which is reasonable for a PC Engine game. And I don't know why there's a price difference in them. I think it was because Blazing Lasers was a bundled game, but it's not meant to be as good, but it's not far off. And I like the PC Engine for shmups. I think they feel really good on the machine, and as it's 60 Hz, they run full speed. So the other one here is Heavy Unit, which is another shmup. So you go from being, and this is a theme that you'll see in other games, you go from being like a mech to transforming into a ship. And it's a good game. It's based on an arcade game, but there is a Mega Drive conversion as well, and they're quite different. And I saw Yakumo 1975, or what's the website? He does Sega Gaga Domain. He does Retrocore, and he did a review of the Mega Drive version. And I decided I'd look into the PC Engine one and got these two at the same time. Oh, it's too hot. I've had to turn the fan off because it makes too much noise. So the other one, the last of the box games, is Dragon Spirit, which is the first PC Engine game that I ever bought, and it's a shmup but fantasy style, so it's like Dragon Rider style. So the last two I've got are on HuCard. So there is, I'm not sure if this will come out very well, there's Image Fight, which is, it's a top-down scrolling shoot 'em up, very similar to Final Soldier, but really hard. I've played that a few times and I can't get very far. I think I can get to the second level, so I've really got to, you know, practice that a lot more. And the final one on the PC Engine is Download, which is another Japanese import, and it's side-scrolling, and it's kind of like if you think of Akira, but the bike flies, so that's why it's like a side-scrolling shoot 'em up. It's really good, and one thing I've really got to cover is the game over screen, because the English on it, you've got to see this. It's bizarre and dodgy, so that's always good. Right, so I'll come on to the Mega Drive. So Hellfire is the first Japanese Mega Drive game that I ever played, so that's the screenshots. This is the PAL release, but this was the first Japanese Mega Drive import that I ever played, and I've talked about the story for this. This is really good because it's got really good music, but you've got the ship, and you can change the laser to be directional, so you can have up, down, left, right, or diagonal. I've never seen that before on a shmup, and that's really hard, but it's a good game. Arrow Flash is one that I picked up a few years ago, maybe even 10 years ago, and I was originally trying to get a set of Japanese shmups, but I just saw this, I think it was in a car boot for a couple of quid, and I bought it. It's alright, it's a bit middle of the road. It's another one of these transforming, mech ship games. It's similar in a way to Whiprush, which I'll come to in a bit. And I think that I'm not sure who made this, it doesn't say on this one, but it's very similar to Thunder Force 3, but not quite as good. So we've got Empire of Steel, which is another, it's like I forget the name of it now, Dragon Spirit. As in it's, not a typical shmup. So this is all, it's based on airships. So that might focus. And it's nice just to have a shmup which is not, just not your generic space shooter, to have something a little bit different. And that's a really good game. So I'll come on to the Japanese releases. So this is Insector X. I don't think this was released in PAL territories. It's got some really nice artwork on it. And this is like an insect-based one. So again, it's a shmup, which is not your typical, shooting space aliens genre. So I'll come on to Thunder Force 2. This is a bit of an annoyance for me. I got this fairly recently, because I have Thunder Force 3 and Thunder Force 4, and I've lost them. And I was really annoyed about this, because Thunder Force 3 and 4, I think I preferred 3 out of all of them. It's certainly a decent game, but it's got these top-down, it's almost like a top-down shooter, but it's multi-directional, and I don't think it works quite as well. But 3 and 4 are really good games, and when I moved house a few years ago, I put them in a box somewhere and just cannot find them. And I don't want to buy them again, because they're quite expensive on eBay, and it seems weird buying a game that you've already got and spending quite a bit on it. But that's a really good game. So the second to last Mega Drive one is Gwynaug, or Gynaug. I'm not exactly sure how you pronounce it. This is the Japanese copy. I've got a PAL one as well. This is the PAL version, and the artwork's, it's nice enough, but I prefer the Japanese one. And I didn't want to buy the game again, but I got this on a bundle, and it came with some unboxed cartridges, and this was in it, so I thought, okay, I'll buy it, so I've got another copy, a Japanese one. So well, the artwork doesn't really compare. But this is weird. It's a bit like Heavy Unit, and it's all kind of monster, alien based, and it's a little bit different. I think this was called Wings of War when it came out in the US. But it feels... There was almost like a series or a stage of games for like shmups that came out on the Mega Drive, and they felt a little bit different to the shmups that came out at the end. And I think later on, when I started playing PC Engine games, I realised that there were a lot of games that were ports of PC Engine games, and some of them just felt like the PC Engine, and I think this is one of them. They're quite ambitious in what they try and do with the game graphically, but you can tell that it feels like an old Mega Drive game. And the last one here is Whitrush, which is another Japanese import. I don't think this came out in the West. It's got some really nice artwork, but graphically it reminds me a little bit of Arrow Flash. It's a little bit generic as a shooter, and again it's a little bit like Thunder Force 3 in the way it plays. It's hard. Is it harder than Arrow Flash? I think it probably is. It's nice in the graphically in the backgrounds, but I just find the sprites are a little bit small and a little bit uninspiring. I think they could have done more with the hardware, but I think this is the thing with shmups. I like space shooters, but sometimes they can become a bit generic, so having ones like Empire of Steel and Wings of War and Dragon Spirit's nice just to have a bit of variety. Right, so with those out of the way, so these will probably take me about 2 weeks. So the last ones are the Mega CD and the SNES. So this is Solfeus, which is another Japanese import. So this is one that I got with the machine, and it's known by some as Solfeces because it was meant to be crap. I don't think it is. If you view it as a Mega Drive game, and it was because it got ported, like backport to the Mega Drive, it's pretty good. I think if you see it as a Mega CD game, and particularly as it was a launch title or a pack-in game, it really doesn't show off the power of the hardware other than the intro and the soundtrack. So I think if you treat it as a Mega Drive game, it's above average. So the next one here is Sylpheed, which it's based on the old DOS game, but it uses full motion video, so it's got like flat shaded polygons, but it's full motion video, so it's not rendering them. And it's a really good game. I've looked at this nearly a year ago, so what I'm going to do, any game that I've looked at before, I'm not going to cover again because there's no point doing 2 videos. But what I'll do is I'll add it to the playlist. Again with Soulstar, this is my favourite shmup on the Mega Drive, and I mean Mega Drive, not just Mega Drive, Mega CD. Really nice game by Core Design, and it uses sprite scaling, and it feels a little bit like it's like their own version of Galaxy Force 2. It's a really nice shmup. It's hard, really difficult game, but it never lets up. There's always something new, and often when you play the levels, they all feel a little bit similar, but this one always keeps innovating, and I've done a video of that before. So this is Starblade, based on the arcade game. This is similar to Sylpheed, it has pre-rendered backgrounds, but all the enemies are 3D shapes, but they're wireframe, which is a bit unusual because you can see through them. But that's another good game that I've looked at. And the last one on the Mega CD is Kyo Flying Squadron, which you could class as a shmup because it plays like it, but it's bizarre in the way it plays. It's very anime. Well, I was going to say inspired. It's not. It's anime style. It's an anime game, but you're fighting as this girl on a dragon thing. I think it's a dragon. Yeah, it's a thing. It's an anime dragon thing, and you're fighting these raccoons. And it's a really innovative take on the shmup genre. So I think if you've got a Mega CD and you're after a game that's a bit different as a shmup, this is a good one to get. I got this a long time ago. I think I paid about £10 for it, but I think it goes for a lot more now on eBay. So I think if you can get that cheap, it's well worth picking up. So the last 2 are the SNES games. I only have the 2 shmups on the SNES. I think the SNES isn't such a good machine for shmups, and there's R-Type and R-Type 3. I really should do R-Type 3 because I have that on the Virtual Console, so I can do a video of that. But this is Super Leste on the SNES, and it's a really good entry in the series. They've used the Mode 7 effect really well for some of the backgrounds and some of the whirly effect, but the game feels really solid and there's no slowdown in it. So the last one is Starwing, and I was on the fence about including this or not, but I thought if I'm doing Solfizz and Starblade and not Solfizz, Soulstar rather, they all sound the same. Soulstar and Starblade, then this really should be included, and there's not much I can say about this. This is just a really, really good game. So I'll leave it there. I really like Shmups, and I've collected them over the years, and it's only now that I've put them together that I've realised I have quite a lot of them, for better or worse. And I thought, given that Shmups is a genre that I think a lot of people like, I think if you don't like it, you're going to be bored for 3 weeks. But I thought I'd just run them all back to back, because it's a genre that I'm in two minds about doing gameplays about, because it's really hard to do live gameplay, and doing live gameplay and talk on the shmup when you've got to have your reaction times is a little bit intimidating, so I'll see how that goes. So I think I'll leave it there. I think it's probably coming up to about 25 minutes now, which is as much as my camera will record, so hopefully it's not cut me off 5 minutes before the end. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
What would that be then? Flicking switches?